Imagine waking up tomorrow and checking your bank account without that sick feeling in your stomach. Not because you suddenly got rich, but because you finally have enough breathing room that one unexpected expense won't destroy your entire month. That shift happens at a specific dollar amount, and it's way smaller than you think. Most financial advice tells you that you need 6 figures or $1 million to feel secure. But here's what they're missing. There's a much smaller milestone that completely transforms your relationship with money. For most people, that number is somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000. 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting in a savings account. I've spent way too much time studying why some people build wealth effortlessly while others stay stuck in the same patterns for decades. If you want to understand the real mechanics of financial stability, instead of just hoping things magically improve, hit that subscribe button. And if this video helps you see money differently, give it a thumbs up. Now, before we dive into why this amount is a game changer, let me ask you something. When was the last time you had a financial emergency that didn't feel like a complete disaster? Your car breaks down, your phone cracks, an unexpected medical bill shows up. If these things send you into panic mode, you're operating in what psychologists call survival mode. Here's what actually happens in survival mode. Your brain literally cannot think about growth and opportunity. It's like trying to plan a vacation while your house is on fire. Every financial decision gets filtered through fear and scarcity. You take the first job offer even if it's terrible because you can't afford to be picky. You stay in situations you hate because leaving feels too risky. You say yes to things you don't want because you need the money. Research from Vanguard shows that having just $2,000 in emergency savings increases your financial well-being by 21%. $2,000. That's less than most people spend on a vacation. But that small buffer creates a massive psychological shift because it moves you out of pure survival mode. When you push that to 3 to 6 months of expenses, around $10,000 to $20,000 for most people, you get another 13% boost in financial well-being. But more importantly, your brain finally has space to think differently. Instead of asking, how do I survive until next paycheck? You start asking, how can I grow this money? Let me show you the math, because this is where it gets really interesting. Let's say you're saving $1,000 every month and earning 8% returns on your investments. Getting to your first $20,000 takes about 19 months. A year and a half of discipline and delayed gratification. It's not easy, and most people give up somewhere along the way. But here's the part that will blow your mind. Your second $20,000 doesn't take another 19 months. It only takes about 17 months. Why? Because now you've got that first $20,000 working alongside your monthly contributions, generating its own returns. You did the exact same amount of work, saved the same amount each month, took the same level of risk. But you shaved 2 full months off the timeline just because you had more money working for you. That's compound interest starting to kick in. By the time you're going for your third $20,000, the timeline shrinks even more. And when you get to the really big numbers, the acceleration becomes almost comical. Once you hit $400,000 in investments, you can generate your next $20,000 in just 5 months. The same amount that took you nearly 2 years initially is now happening automatically. Now you might be thinking wealthy people have access to some secret investment world that regular folks can't touch. And while there is some truth to that at the ultra high end, it's not what's driving this phenomenon. The real secret is much simpler. It's just basic mathematics working in your favor. When you invest $1,000 and it grows 10% in a year, you make $100. Take that exact same 10% growth rate and apply it to $10,000, and suddenly you're looking at $1,000 in profit. Same investment, same time frame, same level of risk. The only difference is scale. This is why hitting that first $10,000 to $20,000 feels like such a turning point. Up until that point, your investment returns feel almost insignificant. A 10% return on $2,000 is $200. Nice, but not life-changing. But a 10% return on $20,000 is $2,000. Now we're talking about money that actually matters. When you've got $20,000 sitting in investments earning 8% annually, that's $1,600 flowing into your account over the year without you lifting a finger. Money you didn't have to earn through your job. Money that showed up because your existing money was working on your behalf. But here's the part most people completely miss, and it might be the most important point in this entire video. When you save this amount, you've accomplished something far more valuable than just accumulating money. You've fundamentally rewired your brain. Think about what it actually takes to save $20,000 from zero. Unless you're making ridiculous money, this requires serious discipline. You had to track where every dollar was going. You had to say no to things you wanted. You had to resist blowing your savings on whatever caught your attention that week. And you had to do this consistently for months or even years. You proved to yourself that you can control your money instead of letting it control you. That's not just a financial skill. That's a life skill. This identity shift affects every financial decision you make going forward. Before you had savings, buying a $4 coffee required mental gymnastics. After you hit this threshold, you're not sweating the small stuff anymore because you know you have your priorities straight. There's another psychological shift that happens here that nobody talks about. You start seeing opportunities instead of just threats. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, every unexpected expense is a disaster. Car needs repairs, laptop dies, rent goes up. These aren't opportunities. They're financial emergencies that derail your month. But when you have $20,000 in the bank, these same events become minor inconveniences at worst. Car needs repairs? Annoying, but not catastrophic. Laptop dies? Time to upgrade. Rent goes up? Maybe it's time to negotiate your salary. Even better, you start noticing opportunities you couldn't take advantage of before. Your friend starts a business and needs investors. Before, you would have thought that sounds interesting and moved on. Now you can actually consider throwing $5,000 at it. A killer deal pops up on a rental property. Before, you would have scrolled past on Zillow feeling envious. Now you can run the numbers. Your boss mentions a career-changing conference, but the company won't pay. Before, you would have made excuses. Now you can weigh the potential return on investment. This is what wealthy people mean when they say money goes to money. It's not some cosmic conspiracy. It's that having money gives you options, and options create more opportunities to make money. Here's something else that happens around this level. You start caring less about small expenses and more about big ones. I know that sounds backwards, but hear me out. When you're broke, you obsess over every purchase. Name brand or generic cereal. Is $3 coffee worth it when I could make it at home? Should I get premium gas or regular? These decisions consume mental energy because every dollar feels precious. But when you have a solid foundation, you realize these micro decisions are largely irrelevant. The difference between spending $3 on coffee versus making it at home is maybe $1,000 per year if you're really going overboard. That's not nothing, but it's not going to make or break your financial future. What actually matters are the big decisions. Where you live, what you drive, how much you save, where you invest. These choices can swing your net worth by tens of thousands of dollars over time. So instead of agonizing over organic bananas, you focus your energy on optimizing your housing costs, maximizing your income, and making sure your investment strategy is solid. This shift in focus is incredibly liberating because it frees up mental bandwidth for decisions that actually matter. Now let's talk about what happens to your career once you hit this milestone, because this is where things get really interesting. Having $20,000 saved doesn't just change your relationship with money, it changes your relationship with work. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're trapped. Your boss could be terrible. Your coworkers could be toxic. The work could be mind-numbing, but you can't leave because you need that next paycheck to survive. This puts you in an incredibly weak negotiating position. You can't ask for a raise because you're afraid they might fire you. You can't push back on unreasonable demands. You can't explore other opportunities because taking time off for interviews feels too risky. You're stuck, and everyone knows it. But $20,000 changes the entire dynamic. Suddenly, you have what I call walking away money. You could quit tomorrow and survive for months while you find something better. This doesn't mean you should be reckless or burn bridges. But it means you're negotiating from a position of strength instead of desperation. This psychological shift affects everything about how you approach your career. You start asking for the raise you deserve. You push back on unreasonable requests. You explore new opportunities. And here's what's really crazy. Often you don't even need to use your walking away money. Just having it changes your entire demeanor at work. You become more confident, more assertive, more willing to take on challenging projects. And guess what happens when you show up differently? People notice. Suddenly you're getting better assignments, more recognition, and yes, more money. It's like having a secret superpower. And knowing it's there changes everything about how you operate. But here's where most people mess this up, and I see it constantly. They hit $20,000, feel that psychological shift, and then immediately blow it on something stupid. Maybe they decide they deserve a new car since they've been so disciplined. Or they take an expensive vacation because they've earned it. Or they use it as a down payment on a house they can't really afford. Don't do this. That $20,000 is not a reward for good behavior. It's the foundation of your entire financial future. It's the seed that grows into generational wealth if you're patient enough to let it compound. Here's something that will probably make you laugh or cry depending on your situation. The average person spends more money on their car over their lifetime than it would take to achieve complete financial independence. Think about that. Between car payments, insurance, maintenance, and gas, most people drop $600 to $800 every single month on transportation. Over 40 years, that's easily $400,000 or more just to get from point A to point B. Meanwhile, they're complaining they can't afford to save for retirement. It's like spending a fortune on a gym membership you never use while complaining you can't afford healthy food. Here's what makes this even more ridiculous. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it loses about 20% of its value. So you're not just spending money, you're actively destroying wealth. Compare that to investing the same amount in a diversified portfolio. Instead of watching your money evaporate, you're watching it multiply. But I get it. Cars are emotional purchases. You want something reliable, something that looks good, something that makes you feel successful. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you understand what you're trading off. That car payment might make you feel wealthy, but it's actually keeping you poor. This is where having $20,000 saved completely changes your perspective. Instead of thinking, can I afford the monthly payment? You start thinking, what is this really costing me in terms of opportunity? That $30,000 car isn't just $30,000. It's $30,000 that could have grown to over $200,000 in your investment account over 20 years. Suddenly, driving a reliable used car doesn't feel like a sacrifice anymore. It feels like a strategic choice that's funding your future freedom. And here's the beautiful irony. The person driving the flashy new car is probably stressed about money, while the person driving the older Honda is quietly building wealth and sleeping better at night. This mindset shift extends to every major financial decision you make. Housing, education, vacations, hobbies. Everything gets filtered through the lens of opportunity cost. Not in an obsessive way that sucks all the joy out of life, but in a strategic way that ensures you're making intentional choices about where your money goes. And let me tell you something that might surprise you. Once you start thinking this way, you often realize you don't actually want half the stuff you thought you wanted. That bigger apartment, the extra space would be nice, but is it worth delaying your financial independence by 5 years? That expensive hobby, it's fun, but there are probably cheaper ways to get the same satisfaction. This isn't about becoming a penny-pinching miser who never enjoys anything. It's about becoming intentional with your money instead of letting it slip away on things that don't actually matter to you. When you have clear financial goals and understand the power of compound interest, it becomes much easier to distinguish between what you want and what you really want. Look, $10,000 to $20,000 isn't going to make you rich overnight, but it will fundamentally change how you think about money and opportunity. It's the difference between surviving and thriving, between reacting to life and designing it. The first $20,000 takes about 19 months if you're saving $1,000 a month. The second takes 17 months. The third takes even less. And each milestone gets progressively easier as your money starts doing more of the work. Start building that foundation today, because your future self is counting on the decision you make right now. Trust me, they'll thank you for it.